I hope you had a wonderful lunch. We move now to item 10, the statements of intent for both Auckland Transport and the Auckland Future Fund. Welcome to the table, Sarah Johnson-Smith and Claire Gomez. But before we do that, Councillor Watson has requested electronic attendance. I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Dalton. All those in favour say aye, against carried. Thank you. We'll see you when you come back, Councillor. Coming through. Right. Shh. And Alistair, welcome. Over to you. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou. This report recommends the approval of the final statements of intents for Auckland Future Fund Trustee Limited and Auckland Transport. We're happy to take the report as read, but I would just note that this marks the end of a process that started with the letters of expectation in February and shareholder feedback on the draft statement of intent in May. In reviewing the final statements of intent, we have reviewed them specifically against the shareholder feedback, and that's attachment C in the item. And we also note for Auckland Transport that the government's proposed reform around transport governance in Auckland may require us to come back and look to amend the statement of intent. And we also note that there are conversations in a paper coming to the Transport, Resilience and Infrastructure Committee next week on ferries. So thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. I'm happy to move. Councillor Baker, do you want a second? I do. Yes, thank you. Open for questions. Councillor Alf.
Kia ora koutou. My question is on, my apologies, on section 24, I think I'm on the right, approval 2025, Māori outcomes in climate change are covered in the relevant sections below. At what stage will we end up, and I know this is about the statement of intent, what stage will we end up getting an update on where we are sitting with the climate change policy that we have, because the statement of intent in regards to this from both are so important. And I'm assuming now that Councillor Hills is here, it'll come through his committee, but I don't know whether this is the last of the GB. Today, eh? No, we got another one?
More.
Oh, what's
This
this
is
one?
August. This is August all day
It's
until the 1st of
I'm just
September.
looking forward to retirement. So yeah, okay then.
So will we, mate.
So at what stage? Just that's the part I around that to come back to us, please.
Through the chair, I'm not aware of a broader conversation around the climate change, but the conversation around the TERP is, as I understand it, there is work being undertaken and will come back in the new term to the relevant committee.
Thanks. You've got till Sunday to stay in August, Councillor. Any other questions? No. Any comments? I'm not going to tempt fate. I'll take it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Next item is the item 11, fix and finish. I'm happy to move. Councillor Sayers, do you want a second? Thank you.
Point of order, Chair. Chair, because in relation to this item, one of the applications is contingent on a future funding negotiation with the Woody Licensing Trust, for which I'm a trustee. So I want to preserve my ability to participate in that. So I'm going to declare a conflict and not participate in this item. Thank you.
I just confirm that is, so you won't be voting on this item? Right, thank you. Right, thank you. I welcome staff, but just by way of introduction, remember that this whole item got set about because we got the Future Fund set up quicker than expected. So I think what staff have tried to do is make it as fair as possible, and they have done all the assessment, and I'll open to them in a minute. It's not spending the capital proceeds from the airport share sale. I want to make that really clear. It's spending the extra return we received from investing better and earlier, and I think we heard that from the chair of the Future Fund earlier. It's not giving local boards things they can't afford in the subsequential OPEX either to maintain. That's one of the aspects that staff have done in their analysis. So I will open to you both, Mark and Violet, to introduce this item from your perspective.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Kia ora, councillors. We're here today, as the Deputy Mayor said, to seek your approval to allocate the $20 million Fix and Finish Fund to eligible local board projects which were from the legacy Auckland City and Manukau City Council areas. This fund was established through the long-term plan following the mayoral proposal to support community projects that were in the pipeline but lacked sufficient funding. This 20 million comes from the enhanced returns via setting up of the Auckland Future Fund and is earmarked for those legacy areas that held the Auckland Airport shares prior to amalgamation, specifically areas within those 13 local boards. We've engaged with all 13 eligible local boards through a set of briefings, workshops and formal feedback processes. In total, we received 14 projects and they requested $57.3 million in total funding, which of course is about 3 times more than we have available. To ensure fairness and strategic alignment, we developed a robust eligibility and prioritisation framework, which looked at readiness and deliverability, affordability, and strategic alignment of the projects. These were assessed by giving each project a final weighted score based on 9 criteria, and they were individually scored out of 5. This process involved cross-organisational input and a senior leadership review of the assessment. Most of these projects did score highly, with an average score of about 3.9 out of 5. We held a governing body workshop where local boards were able to present their individual projects to the governing body for your consideration here today. Direction at that workshop was received that elected members wanted more information on project breakdowns down to further elements, looking at scalability of projects, and also where we could find further financial efficiencies where possible. Following this workshop, we did request some further project information and also considered that scalability, value for money, and leveraging potential local board or third-party contributions, ensuring that this fund delivers the greatest public benefit that it can. So I'll now pass to Violet to talk through the recommended funding allocation.
Thanks, Mark. When considering scalability, our recommended funding approach has been to only fund the highest priority aspect of a proposed project. This focus on value for money allows the Fix and Finish Fund to achieve a broad regional benefit without compromising on the need to fix and or finish. Our recommended allocation funds 13 projects, 1 for each local board in the ACC and MCC legacy boundaries. These allocations are detailed in Attachment E, with funding being allocated to fix community facilities, develop sport fields, and finish streetscapes. In total, we've recommended 19.2 million of funding be allocated at this time, with around 800K retained as a contingency fund to manage unforeseen issues during implementation. Given that projects are in various stages of planning, we believe that this is a prudent approach to managing the overall risks of delivery. The 20 million is already included in the annual plan 2025-2026 as capital expenditure. No additional capital or operating funding is required as a result of your decision today. Local boards will manage any overruns within their budgets with access to the contingency pool only if there are no other options. The staff recommendation is also to delegate to the Group Chief Financial Officer and Director of Community the approval of the release of the allocated budget. Funding will only be released once we can ensure appropriate use of public money, including that business cases are completed and better value project principles have been fully satisfied. Are at different stages of planning and local board submissions were only finalised last month. This will ensure that the appropriate controls are in place before any money is released. Should any project fail to satisfy council senior leadership of meeting these requirements, staff will then return to the governing body to recommend a remediation action, likely the reallocation of funding to remaining unfunded projects. This proposal was developed, as Mark said, with input from finance, governance, and parks and community facilities, the last of which will lead the delivery and reporting of the projects. Once approved, staff will notify local boards and stakeholders, projects will be integrated into departmental work programs, and reporting will be provided to both local boards and the governing body on a quarterly basis. So in summary, today we're seeking your agreement to allocate 19.2 million to the 13 recommended projects in Attachment E. delegate to the Group Chief Financial Officer and Director of Community to release allocated budget only once business cases and better value project principles have been satisfied. Convert 3.5 million of capital expenditure to operating expenditure to enable a capital grant for the Manawera War Memorial Park Multisport Pavilion. Agree that 800k remain as contingency fund and delegate authority to allocate that contingency to the Group CFO and Director of Community. And lastly, note that quarterly reporting and monitoring will be provided to the governing body and local boards on a quarterly basis. This fund represents a really unique opportunity to unlock community projects and deliver meaningful outcomes across Legacy, Manukau and Auckland City areas. We're happy to take any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. I'll now open to questions, and to start us off, we have Councillor Baker.
Thanks, Mark Wallet. So look, I mean, I think it's a pretty good outcome, but just that there's one that sort of just sticks out, and it's and there's obviously a reason for it, but I can't recall anything within the workshop where we talked about the Manarewa situation, and so my question is in regards to what safeguards actually exist. I mean, we're nearly $8 million of ratepayer funding when you take the local board funding and this, and so it all comes from the same wallet. Doesn't matter how it's differentiated out in our books, but I guess what safeguards exist for us, because we're in control of everything else. In this one, what safeguards exist for the ratepayer if that project was to blow out in cost, or it was to fall over completely? What safeguards are there for us, or for the ratepayer more than anything?
I think the relevant part is clause B there, where we will only release funding if we're satisfied that certain criteria are met in the business case side of things. So any work between us and a third party would need to have those funding agreements in place, gateways for releasing different funding and checks and balances at that part when we deliver that business case.
Thank you. Councillor Ferry, you're online. Can you hear us? More importantly, there we go.
Yes, sorry. I was looking at an old question list thinking, oh, I've got a while to wait, but no. Kia ora. So my question was about the total amount here, because I understand we have potentially got an amendment coming that seeks to change that. So I wanted to ask, before we got into debate and officers stepped back, we set this amount and this process up through the long-term plan. What ability do we have to change that amount now, given we consulted on and adopted a specific amount in the long-term plan, please?
It would be slightly odd to change our annual plan projections 2 months after it was adopted. The other worry would be around by changing this contestable process mid-flight, it wouldn't possibly lead to fair and equitable outcomes for the local boards, because local boards might have submitted something slightly differently if they knew the size of the pot was bigger. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point too, that last one. I mean, and is it the case that for most local boards, they sort of, chose the project they thought most likely to succeed for this quantum, as opposed to, putting up multiple projects, seeking support for multiple projects, or that we would pick one from a list? I know for one of my local boards, they certainly picked one to prioritise. Is that your observation of the projects local boards have applied for? They've sort of picked their best shot?
Without putting myself into the mind of a local board member, I think that's probably the case, is that they looked to size it relative to the amount of money that was available through this fund.
Okay, thanks. And then my other question, I guess, is if we were to borrow to increase the amount here, that would have a knock-on effect on rates. Again, is that a decision that we can make through this forum?
If we were to increase the size of the pot, that would have an impact. That would have an impact on debt, and those flow-on interest costs and the depreciation from doing more projects. That would increase the size of our operating cost base. For this financial year, we don't have the ability to change the rates. We struck the rates back in June. We would need to look at that as part of the FY27 annual plan process. And in the meantime, if the governing body decided to proceed, would need to fund any of those operating expenditure through additional borrowings.
If I can add to that, that's the correct financial assessment. You'd have to, at this point, given it's outside of an annual budget, you'd have to just debt fund it and then resolve that through the next annual budget, which could mean higher rates at that point. But in terms of delegation, the governing body can approve unbudgeted expenditure. So you've got the ability, if you choose to approve more spend and borrow and then deal with that in the annual budget. I guess our recommendation is not to do that. We should stick to the budget we've got and only sort of go down that path if there's if there's no other alternatives.
Great. Okay. Thanks very much.
And just a supplementary to that, Ross, before you walk away. So the time to amend the annual budget is after the election with the next council term. That is when you relook at 25-26 budget, correct?
That's right. The incoming council will have to make decisions in December about what to consult on, what rates to consult on, and budget choices for consultation in December. So that will be a matter for the incoming council pretty quickly after the election.
Thank you. Councillor Dalton.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few questions, and just following on from Councillor Baker, I'm looking at C. And notwithstanding the catch-all, or the save-all actually, of B, which is the protection that we have, I do have some process questions and some due diligence questions around the organisation MCFCT, who is going to be receiving the money. So was this an unsolicited bid?
Given the fact that this fund was set up through the LTP and it was well known, we don't believe that then makes it an unsolicited bid. That work between all parties came together following that. So by putting this fund out, there could be different delivery options. One of being a third party to deliver on our behalf. That in fact makes it not unsolicited.
And how did council identify MCFCT as a deliverer of this multi-million-dollar project?
That's a good question, which I don't have the answer to at this time. I think for us, we have assessed the documentation that came through from the local board, which included the pitch from MCFCT to be able to deliver that.
Okay, so it was actually a relationship between the local board and MCFCT. My concern is that the organisation itself is not a deliverer of projects. I don't believe it's ever delivered a project, and that it barely has enough income to cover its own operational costs. Yet in the paper, it does say that it will be up to MCFCT and the local board and the Wiri Licensing Trust to cover any blowout of costs. So we're looking at political dependencies here as well, because the will of the Wiri Licensing Trust and the local board depend on an election, which is happening in a month. So I just feel that there hasn't been enough due diligence done from our side on the organisation that is going to receive the money and their capability and capacity to fulfil what has been detailed in Appendix A. Now, I completely support this project and I completely support changing the CapEx to OpEx. This project's been waiting since 2018. It was the only, it was always going to be successful in getting through the gateways. But I do hold concerns as to why this trust, and I think I understand a bit more now, it's been advocacy from the local board as the holder. So from a governance perspective, are we as the governors making the right decision without having all of the information about the organisation to feel safe enough? Or do you think it's all going to be covered under B anyway?
Yes, it will be covered under B, and I think that there has been some meetings between council staff and the chair of the trust, so to talk about this project in specifics. But due to the very tight timeframes between the project being submitted and this report coming to the governing body, there is still plenty more of that due diligence to come, and that will happen in development of the business case and assessment of that.
Okay.
Councillor, I might ask this a different way. Can you give us confidence that due to the unusual application, can you give us confidence due to the way this application has been put together that you will have the same checks and balances for this project as you will for every other project?
That is correct. We will have exactly the same checks and balances. In fact, we might have more in the way of checks and balances, being that we will be dealing with a third party delivering it. There'll probably be more in the funding agreement to make sure that council, the local board, is covered.
Great, thank you for that. Councillor Foley.
Kia ora, thanks team. Just to clarify, and we might need Ross from Finance to come up, just to clarify, can this governing body approve more funding outside of the annual budget process today, say from debt? And then I've got a few other questions.
Yes, the governing body has the power to approve unbudgeted funding. It has to, be cognizant of the debt impact of that, and then it will have to resolve through the next annual budget, what is the funding source to pay for it. But yes, the authority does sit with the governing body to make unbudgeted expenditure calls.
All right. And has that been ever done before by a governing body? So are we setting a precedent today if we were to do that?
It has been used for significant challenges that are very strategic, things like the City Rail Link, when changes had to be made, and I think perhaps some of the storm response funding, things like that. So big strategic things where there's a very compelling need, and there are major consequences if those calls aren't done, and it's not always practical to wait until the annual budget cycle. So that's why the power exists.
Okay. Thank you for the extra commentary, but I was just asking if it had been done before and if a precedent was being set. Kia ora. Now, the extra balance, you can stay seated there because I've got more questions. The extra balance, the full amount to do all of it is 57.3 million in the report. 20 million is already there. So 37.3 million would be required to actually extra to do the rest of it. Now, let's say that was sourced from debt. How much, just in answering one of the questions raised by the other councillor previously, how much would that actually be in real terms as an increase in our rates in 2026, 2027, and in real dollars? How much in a percentage and how much in real dollars for the 37.3 million?
I think Violet's got all those numbers to hand.
Yes, so basically an additional 37.3 million of debt and capital expenditure. That would incur around 5% of additional interest each year, and around, depending on the exact projects, around 3% of additional depreciation each year. That's an operating impact of about 3 million per annum. On rating base, the general rates next year of 3 billion. That represents about a 0.1% increase on top of the 7.9% we've already planned for. So it would take us up to 8%. In terms of dollars per week, it would take the average residential property up by, I think it was about 7 cents.
Okay, about 7 or 8 cents per week per average household, correct? Okay, so that's the huge impact that we're talking about in terms of that extra 37.3 million.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that would also be about $3.50 extra a year.
All right, just foreshadowing, Chair, that I am going to, I have an amendment that I will be putting forward, not at this stage because, you know, I'm mindful that there are questions for the staff on the current report and the current resolutions. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you. Councillor Hills.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. It might be for the amendment because I only saw it during this meeting. But the what's the precedence of sort of offering 3 times the budget for something we consulted on, and then other local boards in other areas realising they, you know, that aren't these 9 local boards that are dealing with future fairer funding decisions and having to cancel projects, is, you know, there are local boards who never got their ollies done. So I'm just wondering what the precedence is for that. Do we start?
Violet?
Yeah, as I sort of said, yeah, changing the contestable process midstream, I'm not sure there is a lot of precedence for it. The other thing to consider would be around these projects have only been submitted by local boards in the MCC and ACC areas. And so that additional rates, that additional debt would be attributable to all ratepayers, not just, yeah, it would be, yeah, everyone would need to pay for that and may not benefit.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Foley, another one?
Yes, sorry, team. I wanted to ask, because it's only a 20 million fund that's been allocated, but almost every local board submitted projects that were more than what they're getting, how many of those projects are actually being fixed and finished with the allocation that you have made to the extent that the local boards wanted? Are you able to give us a number of how many are actually going to be fixed and finished?
I think in short, because we looked at scalability and value for money, we've been able to say that we're fitting generally with the intent of the fund, and that those portions that we're allocating funding to, those portions are being fixed or finished. So while it might not be the whole project, because it's impossible with a $20 million fund to fund all 57 million, that we are fixing and finishing those elements that are being funded.
Is there any projects, 1 or 2 projects that are completely fixed and finished by the allocation that you have made? Because it was a contestable grant. My understanding was we passed that as a contestable grant, so it didn't have to be a let's divvy up and give everybody a little bit type of grant.
From memory, and I can check, I don't think we fully funded any project for the full amount that they requested. That we did look at that scalability.
Kia ora. And just last question, Chair, and thank you for your forbearance on that. You did make a comment about, you know, the rates if we did fund the extra, so that these 13 local boards and 14 projects could be funded, that the rates, the 5 cents or 8 cents per week would be on every ratepayer across the whole city. But is it not true, though, that the airport shares and the proceeds from the airport shares, every Aucklander, every resident, every ratepayer has benefited from all of that, and those were shares brought to the merger by just ACC and MCC? Is that true or false?
At amalgamation, different councils brought together different assets, different things that, yeah, have made up the council. Yes, the airport shares have benefited us.
Kia ora. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. That brings me to the end of the questions. No, it doesn't. Councillor Filipaina.
Kia ora he mana. Kia ora Chair. Kia ora koutou katoa. Can you confirm that with the airport's shares sale, that there was $1.3 billion that we got that's currently in the future fund or thereabouts?
Yes, approximately that.
And there's only $20 million that's been allocated for this fixed and finished fund that goes to the 2 legacy councils, which is Manukau City Council and Auckland City Council?
Yes, although just to clarify slightly, the 20 million was enabled by the enhanced funds for when we did sell the shares. So it's not from the 1.3 billion, it's from the enhanced.
No, I realise that it's not, but that's the ratio. So what is that ratio between, or percentage between 20 million for the 1.3 billion? Do you know what that ratio would be, or percentage? Would it be 0 point something?
Off the top of my head, and Mark's doing the calculation now, I think that would be around 2%. 1.5%.
Is that all? Okay, thank you. The other part I have is with the 19.2 million that this particular agenda item is looking at using out of the 20 million that's been allocated, and there was a total of 57.29624, and that is what has been requested by the local boards. How many of the local boards, I've been trying to look through attachment D, how many of the local boards would basically get next to nothing or miss out on any of the funding?
All local boards were allocated funding, all 13. They're all roughly in the same scale, kind of between 1 to 3 million.
Yeah, I've seen one which only 800,000, I think,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I had a look at it, but yeah, close to one.
Yeah.
So look, my next question is that there's two local boards that presented, and those two local boards, one is Waitemata, and the other is Māngere o Tāhuhu around seismic. Now, I know there's legislation, I think it's still currently going through, and I don't know whether this question is to you or the CEO. Where are we at in regards to that legislation, and what is happening with, I think, the funds that we had put aside for seismic sort of fixing renewals? Where are we at with those two particular things?
Maybe for the mayor or the chief executive to answer that one. I'll maybe if you want to re-put your question.
So Phil,
to
do you want, oh, sorry. I was going
Apologies,
to repeat
councillor,
the
I was
question.
just dealing
Do you
with
want to
something else.
repeat it? Okay, so I know there's some seismic legislation going through, and there were two local boards with the fix and finish fund. One was Waitemata, and the other was Māngere o Tāhuhu in regards to buildings that they have in their two local board areas. And one of them, I think the comment made, in particular for the Waitemata, was no funding proposed for seismic due to likely changing standards. But my question is, where are we at with the legislation? And two, I know we had a fund put aside for seismic, and where are we at with that, please?
Can I, councillor, I don't know off the top of my head. Can I suggest that I get an answer and feed it into you before the debate concludes?
Yes, please, because my next question, it may not be to you, but to our kaimahia, to our staff, is that depending on the response, could that seismic, wherever we end up, could that be allocated as first taxi off the rank to those two local board projects?
I don't think we'd want to preempt that. The seismic fund is there for a reason. We would want to go through a proper prioritisation process for all the seismic projects that would be relevant to that fund.
Kia ora, Violet. So, CEO, that might be something that you may come back as well, because if we're looking at this fix and finish fund, I mean, and you've got two local boards, they're obviously not going to get anything out of this. This has been an issue, is really to come back with that information and then have a look as to the process. So I'll leave that with you. Thanks, Phil. Kia ora, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Leone.
My question is just coming back to the, obviously, we heard that we'd saved a significant amount of money, 600 million. And I just wanted to double check with the numbers on that. So can I just get confirmation of how much savings over the target we actually made? So we had our target, and then what's the difference in terms of the additional?
Hold on, councillor, this is a different item, right? That's...
The only reason why I'm asking is just to see, in the past, with the savings that's made, if it is additional, does that go straight onto debt? Just to get my understanding of the questions that have been asked about debt and borrowing money.
So to the extent that we've achieved savings targets, savings over and above the targets, that provides a beneficial impact that does pay down debt. And then when we set our budget projections each year, we bake that in, we factor in that forecast. And so the budgets going forward sort of reflects the best forecast we had around where those targets were landing.
Okay, I just wanted to check that, because if we were above the target that we were looking at, whether there was a difference there that we could have considered to borrow the money on, but
So
looks like there isn't.
So we'll have that saving period is finished, we've already paid down debt. So either way, you'd be borrowing more money than you would otherwise if you were to spend more money on this initiative or any other.
And just remember, we've got a pretty high savings target again this year, 87 million. Right, councillor Dalton.
All right, just the last question regarding C. If B is satisfied, does the money go from council to the local board or from council to the third party?
Yeah, through the funding agreement, it would go from council to the trust, to the third party. The local board or council is one entity.
But actually not, because possibly the other projects are going back through the local board's budgets.
They would be inside the local board's budgets, but the local board budgets are all part of the council's budget.
I understand the process. I'm just trying to understand is, the money could go to the local board and then the local board could send it to, they would grant it because the wording is grant. So is the grant from council like what we would say a regional grant, or is it going to the local board and then given out as a local grant?
It would sit as a grant on the local board's budget.
But in terms of how it would work in practice, so it wouldn't just be a top-up of the local board funding for them to have discretion. It would be a particular grant for this purpose through a funding agreement, and it would only be released through that funding agreement process. So it's not discretionary money to go to the local board. It is a grant for a particular purpose. So it's effectively, it would work in practice like a regional grant, although it would be reported as, when it comes to reporting time, it would show up as within that local board's budget.
Just to round off my question around that was the way that the resolution or the recommendations in the report is written. If B is not satisfied in terms of MCFCT, will the local board still get the funding because that is the desired outcome, or is this tie us into granting a third party who by then might not exist because they didn't stack up?
If we're unable to satisfy the requirements of B, where staff would come back to governing body with a recommendation of a remediation action, this does not tie us to this particular delivery model. And as part of developing up the business case, I'd expect, honestly, that we'd look at the options around the delivery model and pick the best one that's going to deliver the most value for the council and the local board.
So my final question, then in fact, is it easier and less cumbersome to just have the recommendation to change the capital to OPEX and not even talk about a third party, because otherwise, if it doesn't stack up, you've got to come back. If it doesn't, the local board is still getting the money and they can choose a different delivery partner or whatever.
Yeah, look, you know what she's saying, don't you? She just wants to make sure that the grant goes for the project, and because it's a third party, she wants to be very sure that, and we've asked you this question before, that the checks and balances are in place. That's the first thing. But she doesn't want the money to go to the local board if the project doesn't step up. Is that right?
Well, no, what I'm saying is that if the local board gets the money without the baggage of the third party in the recommendation, then they can just proceed with another third party deliverer. Otherwise, perhaps it needs to come back and say, actually, MCFCT, we can't use them for whatever reason. I mean, it might work out fine, right? I just want it to be unencumbered.
I think it will work out fine, but you just want them to give you that assurance.
Through the chair, yeah, so we think looking at the recommendation, you could give effect to it by taking out all of the words after capital grant. So then it doesn't specify who it's to or what for. That would then be worked out as the delivery method during the business case.
I would appreciate that, thank you.
So you're talking about C, aren't you? Right. Okay. All right then, just give me 2 seconds. We're going to change chairs anyway. 2-minute break. Thank you. To you.
That's a hospital pass. I have no further questions at this stage. You retire, but I wouldn't run away in case somebody pops up with an amendment.
In that case, Your Worship, I'd like to put up my amendment. It's already been submitted. I've already foreshadowed that as well. Yes, I'll move my amendment and... It's been sent. Yeah. It's been sent, and it's been written and signed and sent.
Myself.
Yeah, the Manukau amendment.
It's a regional councillor's amendment, Your Worship.
Get that out. We fund an additional 25,000 to all remaining local proposals, excluding their proposed facility to be funded by additional debt with interest and depreciation funded by general rates conditional on assessment. Better value project, noting preliminary advice received on this was
The
that
staff come back.
raise our debt to revenue over a limit, $2 million of additional depreciation and result in an increase of 5 cents. Why don't we just sort of increase that for a couple of $100 million? We can buy everything that we might want, you know.
Chair,
Get
through
everyone
you, I'm
cars.
happy for staff to come back so that we can ask them questions and then we'll speak to it if that's all right. Thank you.
Just saying, you know, why didn't you make it 253 million? We could really have a good time and get everything we needed.
Make it 2.3 billion. Kia ora. Are you going to take questions for the staff?
Okay, questions. I've got a question about that. If we were stupid enough to do this, this is 20 million that's come from something that was in 2 areas of the Auckland city, not all of it. So if we were going to put more money in than we consulted upon, then that would cost, it would have to, is the expectation that everybody would have to pay this extra bit for this? So people who are not in the beneficial area would suddenly find something that they hadn't known was coming. And where are we on consultation for this? Because we did consult at 20 million, unless I've got that wrong. Is it correct that we consulted at 20 million for those 2 particular areas of Auckland, the old Auckland and the old Manukau?
That is correct. And in terms of that consultation, you already had a funding source for that 20 million baked into the budget, that by expanding it, you are spreading the cost to all of Auckland, and therefore, in our mind, the benefit would then need to be opened up to all of Auckland rather than those 2 distinct legacy council areas.
Well, if we're going to do something like that, wouldn't we have to consult all those people? Because we consulted carefully on this. And we had an LTP that produced this as well, as far as I can see. So this is suddenly 2 bits of Auckland shoving a whole lot of money and bills on other people who haven't been expecting it. Is that not correct?
It's probably not significant enough to trigger a legal requirement to consult, but if we are increasing council's debt, increasing potential rates that people might need to pay, yeah, you could argue it's the right thing to do to consult.
Yeah, but some of the area was never involved in this, and those people knew they were never involved in this. The North Shore and other areas out west. But they would be involved in paying for this suddenly. So surely we would have to let them know, do you really want to fund something or other that wasn't in your area, that you didn't know about?
Correct. At a principled level, with that cost then going to all ratepayers, it could then be argued that it should be the benefit of all ratepayers.
Councillor Hills, please.
Yeah, thank you. It's just on the process too. So I know it says results in an increase of rates, but the rates have already been struck. So I guess a question for Phil, this would only mean we would be deprioritising $25 million worth of capital somewhere else. That's all you can do within this time. This is, as far as I know, we can't suddenly up the rates this week. It's already been done. So could I just get an answer from Phil or Ross that all we would be doing is deprioritising 25 million of projects from around the city that are already in priority order?
If you were just to agree to the expenditure, then you could, without deprioritising other projects, you could just borrow more, so have more debt, and then you would resolve that in terms of the rates impact through next year's annual budget. You would have to consult with people on rates and paying for it through next year's annual budget. You could legally decide today to spend more and then consult with people how they pay it later. That might be legally possible, but is that good practice? I guess that's a question for you to determine.
Okay, and because we knew and we accepted and wanted and voted for the 20 million, and no one, as far as I know, changed that at the time, but the
20 million was the sum that
yeah.
emerged from this. It wasn't something that we found. There was 20 million that came out of that system. We didn't ask for any more anywhere else. Okay?
So, no, I don't need to skip my question, Councillor. The prioritisation of assets, of capital projects, this would supersede other capital projects around the city. Like, this is only what that means. Because otherwise, next week I might bring an amendment to chuck up on a few projects as well. I mean, is this, I just want to know from Phil Wilson, and I know this is getting into the politics, but I just worry about the precedent of an amendment with I've never seen an amendment with a figure like this that would deprioritise or prioritise other projects above what we've consulted.
Well, it's unplanned expenditure. You're right that the rates have been struck. Ross has answered that question insofar as how it would be treated. I think earlier in discussions there were examples of unplanned expenditure being provided for. I'd have to say it's unusual, and normally our advice would be to reserve that for the special and unusual circumstances that have created something urgent to address. But beyond that, you're quite right. This is in the political space. It is open to you. Ross has explained that it's legally open to you if you choose to go there. The staff advice, would be to be cautious.
And just the question back on where the funding comes from. So this is not from sale. The 20 million wasn't from sale proceeds. It was because we made the decision to open the future fund 6 months earlier than the LTP locked in. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was from the enhanced returns rather than the proceeds.
Yeah, so additional. And everyone, the whole city is going to benefit from the 90 million additional a year ongoing. It's not like the capital has disappeared.
That's correct. It is for the whole of council.
Councillor Fletcher, please.
Oh, Chair, good to see you there. It would seem like whether you as Chair are going to rule this in or out of order, it is in order from what I've heard, but I am one who cannot support this, and I'm hoping that we can move on and then take a vote on whether we accept it or reject it.
Thank you for that. Councillor Leone, please.
I just wanted to raise a question about whether this could also be looked at in the annual plan. Obviously it's brought up today, yeah.
I guess our advice is that if you're looking at additional projects, the annual plan or an LTP is the appropriate time to look at all the priorities, all the projects, the rates and debt trade-offs, and make a call in the whole. And so the unbudgeted expenditure route should only be for emergency purposes or something really pressing. So our professional advice would be these things are better considered through an annual plan process.
Thank you for that. Councillor Foley, please.
Yeah, kia ora, thanks guys. Can I just get you to confirm again for clarity for everyone listening that this can be done legally by the governing body? Yes, it might be unusual, but we've done many unusual things before, but legally this can be done, and this is not setting a precedent.
So yes, legally this can be done. Whether it sets a precedent, I guess, is a political question. If you do this today, what would you do next month? Those are political decisions. We can't really answer what political precedent it may or may not
It's somewhat
set.
inconsistent with your earlier answer, but thank you. And then also, in terms of, the proposal is for it to be sourced from debt. So no current projects will be delayed or deferred or cancelled as a result of getting this extra debt to prioritise these wonderful projects across our city. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And in terms, again, I'll ask again, in terms of the airport shares brought to the table by Auckland City Council and Manukau City Council from 2010 until they were sold partially 2024, we were talking about over $400 million in dividends just from that merger period. Did the whole of Auckland, every ratepayer, every local board area, benefit from those dividends from the Auckland airport shares?
Yes, they did.
Thank you. And last questions. So in terms of that lower figure, because before I asked about the 37.3 million, which was the balance to get everything across the table. For those 14 projects across 13 local boards in our city, over 1 million people, how much would that cost in terms of interest and depreciation? So just checking those figures that we've got there in terms of, what I've noted there. And is that correct? That the increase in rates, the effect on rates, would be in 2026 to 2027, taking it from 7.9 to 7.97%, as advised. No, that's not there, but it would be an increase of 5 cents per week per average household in Auckland, to give effect to that, to allow us to borrow that money to deliver all of those 14 projects that those 13 local boards across the city have put up.
Yes, essentially, I won't repeat my answer from last time. The numbers are scalable. This is about 2/3 of the previous 37.3 million, so therefore 2 million of interest and depreciation, therefore 5 cents, or it's about $2.84 extra a year. And again, just to reiterate that would be paid for by all ratepayers.
Kia ora. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Filipaina.
Kia ora, he mana. Kia ora, Chair. Can you tell me that with this amendment that's up there now, the only local board who will not benefit at this stage is the Otara Papatoetoe local board?
I believe under this amendment, the $8 million indoor court for Otara Papatoetoe would benefit.
And also, can you tell me, with this particular amendment, this might be to you, Ross, this question is to you. Can I confirm that there was a discussion with yourself and myself yesterday in regards to the financial implications around putting in an amendment for either 40 million or 20 million? Can you confirm that?
Yes, we've had discussions with yourself and information for other councillors around what the financial implications might be of various amendments that have been considered. So yes, the councillors have consulted with finance staff, and we have kind of given you, here are the financial implications of different options.
Thank you. And can you also confirm that one of your staff, Mark Purdy, has been helping not only myself but Councillor Foley and our council advisors, CSAs, around this amendment?
Yes, the team have been helping with any amendments. We stand ready to give advice so that the governing body can make informed decisions.
And my last question is, with this amendment, this will benefit the majority or even 99% of the local boards who gave their project and deputation to the workshop.
Well, I think in simple terms, each local board will get the full funding that they requested, except for Otara Papatoetoe, where they will get the substantial 8 million for the indoor court.
So this amendment would benefit those local boards and the people in those areas, but the cost in terms of rates would be across the region, as the team have explained.
And sorry, just one more thing I just wanted to also mention was with the Manukau Sports Bowl, our understanding at this stage is that there isn't a plan in place to pay for any of the ongoing OPEX. The Otara Papatoetoe local board is already having challenges with its budget. So yes, while this would create an asset for that local board, it also creates costs.
Sorry, Chair, I just have to clarify that's not true. The local board actually presented on that, and they said that they would use optimisation and look at a targeted rate to cover ongoing operational costs for the stadium. Kia ora.
Yeah, but they haven't got that in. They haven't got a targeted rate, there, have they?
No, but they would. I checked that with
Well, they'd ask for a targeted rate, but they just can't. Willy-nilly, we can't.
So I just want to finish off my last part, if that's okay.
I didn't interrupt you.
Ross, to your comment around this amendment, and everybody around Auckland will benefit. Can you also confirm that everybody in Tāmaki Makaurau would benefit from the $1.3 billion that's in the Auckland Future Fund that was there as a result of the airport shares being sold that were held by only two legacy councils, Manukau City Council and Auckland City Council? Can you just confirm that people will benefit from that for years to come?
Yes, that is also true.
Thank you.
Councillor Henson, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just trying to understand the processes here vis-a-vis annual plans and LTPs. There's probably not a hard dollar figure, right? But what level of extra funding is significant enough or considered significant enough to trigger a consultation process?
That's a tricky one. We have a significant engagement policy that sort of sets out certain thresholds and criteria. In simple terms, I guess that the key test is, would people have made a different submission for their annual plan if you'd put the question to them at the time? So it is a bit of a judgment. There's some financial thresholds. There's also a public interest test. Would the public be interested? Would they have given you different submissions around the Auckland Future Fund and this 20 million if they had known this was one of the options? So it's a bit of a how long's a piece of string, and it requires a bit of judgment to say how significant is significant.
That's
right,
really
it's
helpful.
A bit of a vague answer, but that's
that's very helpful. Thank you very much. I've just got one more. In answer to a previous question, you said, you said that this isn't the first time we've come to committee and passed extra money for something, right? But in those previous instances, would it be fair to say that there was some urgency involved?
Yes, so other ones like the City Rail Link, there was a need to make a call with government on significant, do we proceed with the project or significant changes to City Rail Link, which is a hugely, if we hadn't made an urgent call, would have had serious implications. Equally, there's changes to the buyout scheme with central government. If we hadn't made urgent decisions, there'd be significant consequences for affected parties. So there is precedent for making changes outside budget processes, but they are when there are very urgent and very pressing circumstances.
Thank you very much. It's really useful. Thanks, Mayor.
Righto, you guys retire. Don't disappear because we've still got more coming. And Councillor Foley would like to talk to this and open the debate, presumably.
Kia ora. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone. And look, I don't think it's a secret that all of Auckland has benefited from the airport shares brought to the table, or I like to liken it to a marriage, actually, in 2010, when the super city was created. Auckland City Council, Manukau City Council brought to the marriage a very, very fat dowry in the shape of our very valuable airport shares. And the rest of Auckland came and received the benefit of that. And since 2010, as I said, have benefited to the tune of over $400 million in dividends. Now also $833 million when it was partially sold to pay down debt. All of Auckland benefits from that. And the $1.319 billion from the proceeds of the sale of the airport shares, all of Auckland benefits from that. And we've heard from our staff earlier on today, that will be intergenerational benefit. Not benefiting today, we hope it'll benefit us going into the future for our mokopuna. This $20 million, I acknowledge that the Mayor put that up during the LTP process, or during the annual plan and LTP arguments about this all. And I acknowledge that, but even at that time I did say that was such a small amount when you consider the benefit that all Aucklanders since the merger have received from those airport shares. It's a slap in the face, really. It's a drop in the bucket of what we have received in benefits and will continue to receive in benefits. So I'm saying, looking at these projects, I sat in that workshop and I listened to local board after local board, 13 local boards that cover over 1 million people in terms of our population here in Tāmaki Makaurau, right? That's over 61% of our population and of our area in terms of a city. And I listened to each one. They weren't asking for golden bridges in their local areas. They were asking for sand carpeting of their sports fields. They were asking for their facilities that have been left to sweat and rot over decades to finally be fixed or finally be finished. They were asked to bring projects together. They sought advice over many, many months, and they came to us with the projects that they felt were best suited for this fund. These local boards from the old Auckland Council, Auckland City Council and Manukau City Council areas. Staff, it was a contestable fund, but when you look at the way that it has been divvied out, I question how contestable it was actually, and I question some of the thinking around how that was divvied out in the end, and I get it. They wanted every local board to have a little bit, because each local board that came had a very deserving project. Each local board made a really good case for their projects that they put up. So of course you're going to want to give everybody a little bit. But in doing so, you've neither fixed nor finished any of those projects. Each project gets a little bit towards something. Otara Papatoetoe loses out the most. They get $1 million to do a bit more investigation for a sports bowl that we know has a regional, possibly a regional, maybe sub-regional impact and benefit for the rest of Auckland. So all I'm saying is, let's honour these local boards who brought those assets to the table during that marriage in 2010, who we continue to benefit from. Let's honour them by actually fixing and finishing those really important projects that they've brought to the table. These are things that won't just benefit the residents in those 13 local boards, although that's over 1 million people. Actually, it'll benefit all of Auckland. I know the Epsom Library. You know, we heard from the local board there, if they don't get that funding, they're going to have to close that Epsom Library. I know the girls from Auckland Girls, the girls from Epsom Girls Grammar, the boys from Auckland Boys Grammar, they go to that library. Most of them, definitely in Auckland Girls Grammar, don't actually live in that area. Many of them come from my area. Many of my nieces have gone to Auckland Girls Grammar. So it's got more than just a benefit for that local board area. If that library closes, we know that those students, thousands of students, won't be able to use that. The same in Waiheke. That helipad, we heard from the chair then, that is not just a nice to have. Changing it into a heliport is a necessity because of their isolated location. Now we know thousands and thousands and thousands of Aucklanders go there who do not live on Waiheke. So they will benefit from having that essential service available through that project. Folks, all I'm saying is let's really honour these areas that have brought these wonderful shares to the table that we are all benefiting from, and let's actually fix and finish those projects that those 13 local boards brought forward, that all of us, all Aucklanders, will actually be able to benefit from. Kia ora, Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Filipina.
Kia ora here, mana, thank you again. Firstly, I want to acknowledge the staff. Ross, thank you. Thank you to you, because every time there is an issue that has an impact on rates, has an impact on our financial stability, has an impact on anything that has to deal with the finance of Auckland Council, I will ring you, and then I will wait for your staff, in particular Mark, who ended up advising and sending emails to us around it. So to you, to Mark, to your team, I just want to acknowledge you all. Thank you so much. Now, when people end up, and I hear around this table, this is the interesting thing, oh, this is for political reasons. This is not for political reasons. Why? Because our local board ended up in that amendment basically losing. That's why. It's not political. I was online when I heard the local board speak around their projects. I was online. What I heard from them, and some of them in particular, was this project that we've got. Guess what? It's a sub-regional project. It's going to benefit people outside of our local board. That's what they said to us at the workshop. And I heard them say that. This is why both Councillor Foley and I, from the Manukau ward, put on our regional hat on. We get elected from our ward, but guess who we represent around this governing body table? We represent, I just want to make sure that you're finished before I continue.
No,
Well,
I can actually chew gum and walk,
What I'm
mate.
saying, I'm just going to say it very calmly. I do not like to be interrupted when people are talking as I'm talking. I just wanted to make sure that you had finished, and that's all I'm saying. But thank you. So look, this is why we've put on our regional hat, as all of us have done. And if everybody else thinks that, look, this is so unusual, you're right, the CEO said that, but it's been done. There has been precedent. And we are doing the same thing because we're looking at the other local boards that that deputised at that workshop. This gives the ability for their project, and some of them sub-regional, to be completed, to be done. This is the main reason we're doing it, is to make sure that they have the ability to fulfill what they have promised to their community. And that's the only reason we put this up. In regards to the rates, I totally agree. Yes, it's only 5 cents, but you know what? 5 cents per week is a hell of a lot when you then combine it over a year. And we know that. Both of us know that. And I know it is going to be an impact on the rates. I know we're going to borrow. Don't forget we borrowed $833 million to pay off debt. The whole of Tāmaki Makaurau benefited from that. The whole of Tāmaki Makaurau are going to benefit from the $1.3 billion in the Auckland Future Fund. You know that I made my position clear when we had that debate, but it's gone. It's in the Auckland Future Fund. I'm moving forward with that. And I have no doubt at all that what the decision we made around the airport shares and the money in the Auckland Future Fund is going to benefit us. No doubt at all. That's why I'm not going to go backwards around, we should have done this, and we should have. I'm not. It's now in the Auckland Future Fund. Let's have a look at how that benefits, because it's going to benefit the whole. On item 8, Councillor Hills asked a question of the CEO, and the CEO's response was, boards themselves are a bit stressed. That was your reply to his pātai. With your item. Let's alleviate that stress for them. Let's alleviate it. This is the only way that I can see, by alleviate that stress for them in regards to this. My last comment before I close is that for me, and I know it applies to everyone that sits around this table, we end up being around this table to ensure that our community benefits. We also sit around this table and look at our community that are on fixed wages. I just think that the benefits at this stage with the 5 cents outweighs for us the benefit that our community will get. So look, I'll just leave it at that, and just let obviously the councillors sitting around this table make the decision. Kia ora.
Thank you for that. Councillor Williamson, please.
Yeah, look, I just want to bring a bit of history back to this, because I remember in 2010 the development of the whole super city, and one of the big debates was around the airport shares, because some of the legacy councils had sold theirs and others hadn't, and it seemed unfair. But I still remember the Treasury briefing. I wished I'd known I was going to get to this today, and I would have tried to dig it out. There was really good evidence that those that had sold their shares had downsized their debt profile, and so they brought less debt to the table at the merger. And those two that hadn't, Manukau, and I was part of Manukau, so I was trying to get as much as we could for Manukau, but it turned out that Manukau had a higher debt profile but had kept its shares. And it's a shame we don't have the specific spreadsheet to show that, but it's not quite as clear-cut as, we kept our shares so we should have a better share of it. What the others have done is reduce their debt profile so that they brought less to the table for the amalgamation of it. So for Waitakere and for North Shore and for other councils that aren't part of the Manukau Auckland, they weren't as bad as it sounds, like, they went and got the money and just squandered it. Many of them actually corrected for debt rather than holding shares. And so it's not as clear-cut a debate as it's just them and us. there were a whole range of factors in the spreadsheet, I remember them well, that came out with a halfway reasonable balance for most of the books that they brought to the table.
Thank you for that. Councillor Baker.
Yeah, look, and be no surprise that I'll be voting against this. But I agree with Morris, and so, you know, the bringing together of all of the councils in Auckland just brought together a whole unholy mess of different situations. And, you know, I find it difficult when we now try and hold on to things that, you know, nearly 15 years ago were something that one or two councillors had. I just struggle with that because we've been here for 15 years. We are one council now, and we all brought different things into it. It might have been debt, it might have been assets, whatever. At some stage, we just have to move on and stop living in the past a little bit and make the right decisions for Auckland. I sat here this morning and I listened to what we spent 2.5 hours grilling the CEO and Ross Tucker about finances and everything else, and I heard repeatedly concerns about the level of rates increases that, as Ross pointed out, they go from every time there's a revaluation, they go from way to, you know, one end of the city to the other. And so I just sat there and I went back to the memo that was sent out. 125,000 properties in Auckland went from 10% to over 50%. Over 50%. Not some little 5 cents, which is on average, over 50%. I have had people who are on fixed incomes who have been in tears on the phone to me wanting to know how the hell they are going to pay their rates when they're paying over $1,500 in an increase, and yet we have councillors who are just prepared to say that doesn't matter, we'll just add on in a process that is so far out of what should be and is appropriate. I just cannot support that. We have people who are struggling. We hear it every time we meet, the cost of living crisis, and you cannot ignore that. And so I will not be supporting this to increase rates, to increase debt, to give local boards, to honour local boards. How about we honour the ratepayer? You know, seriously, if you think that these projects are going to take the stress off local boards, you know nothing about local boards, because local boards have stress all over the place because they're trying to deliver. Until we give them the ability to actually raise their own rates through a local rate, we will never fix the issue that we have of the funding, and just throwing more money at them at the cost of the ratepayer will do nothing. So I'll be voting against this.
Councillor Lee, please.
Yes, I've always found this process a bit distasteful, really. It's like throwing a few bones from the carcass of our legacy airport shares around, make us all feel better. I have a great deal of sympathy for the staunch members opposite who've moved this amendment, and I can understand their reasons. But I have concerns. We have been through a process called fix and finish. I don't know where the council gets this jargon from. Nothing is fixed and nothing is finished. But anyway, we've been through it. It was a process and an agreement and a consensus was hammered out. And then we have this change. Now, it may be extremely well justified, the expenditure that's been permission is being sought for here, but and the local boards are close to the community. However, the people who pay the rates are the ultimate authority in these matters, and we need to deal with them, and the way we should be dealing with them is through an annual plan process. That's when we, and God knows, we spend enough time in workshops on these annual plan and long-term plan processes. We don't have, unfortunately, the access to the community that we should have through proper formal hearings, and we need to restore that. But leaving that aside, for the reasons stated by members around the table,
I can't support this at this time for the very reasons that the impact of rates is really being felt right across the region. I've just got an email from a gentleman on Waiheke who says his rates on 2 properties, who's a business person, have gone over $50,000 this year. And people are just finding that unaffordable. And so we have to keep to our obligations and processes which are set out under the Local Government Act and decide on these projects at the right time during the annual plan and the long-term plan. So I can't support the amendment at this time. Come the annual plan and it's in the budget, fine, but not now. Thank you.
Councillor Lee, thank you for that. Councillor Fletcher is next, please.
Oh, thank you. I want to acknowledge Lotte Fully for trying to bring this to us, and I always listen closely to what she brings to the table. I also used to love to listen to the late Feso Collins because he always gave me a perspective that I wasn't kind of expecting. But what really resonated when you spoke, Councillor Fully, through you, Chair, was you were talking about the dowry that you bring to the table. And unfortunately, that hardened my stance on this issue, because the real dowry that Legacy Auckland City brought to the table was not only the airport shares and other assets, many other assets that have become controversial as we've debated whether they should be sold or not, but it brought 100% depreciation to the table. And I think if Auckland City had done its due diligence at the time, it probably would never have agreed to amalgamation. But as others have said, we are where we are, and we're sitting around this table as regional councillors. This was meant to be the icing on the cake in the Merrill proposal. It hasn't been brought up until now, and for that reason, in representing the Legacy Auckland City folk that are talking to me and the boards that have talked to me, their feedback is the cost of living stuff. People are really struggling with rates at the moment. It might not, in a cost plus sense, we can just keep adding a little bit here and a little bit there, but I actually think we should be deducting a little bit here and deducting a little bit there. There is pain out there. And the message I've had from the local boards who have spoken to me is do nothing that is going to increase rates, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Could I have Deputy Mayor Simpson, please?
Thanks, Your Worship. I just want to bring us back to what we're doing here. The Auckland Future Fund was set up faster than expected, and as a result, we had a $20 million pot, right? Windfall. Mayor put in the proposal, and the local boards, the relevant local boards, submitted to a $20 million pot. I have some sympathy for your project. I think it's a good project. But the process, and Councillor Alf, you're a stickler for process here. The process was you applied to a fund that had a $20 million cap, all right? Not a $45 million cap, a $20 million cap. What staff have done is they have used a set of criteria and impartially come up with a response that met that criteria, worked within the pot, the $20 million pot, and that is the original recommendation. Councillors, I understand your passion for this project. I do. But I'm afraid, strangely enough, I support Councillor Lee in saying that if you're going to talk about this particular project, that we look at it for those of us, well, actually, I am going to be here the next 3 years, whether I like it or not, at the next review of the current annual plan. That is the time to look at it. So I'm sorry, I won't be supporting your amendment. I understand why you're doing it. I understand your passion for the project and the area you represent. But I want to ask councillors to remind councillors what we're actually here to do. To recommend an impartial, non-political analysis of a criteria for a $20 million fund, and that's what we should be doing. Thank you.
Okay, that's everybody. I won't be supporting this. It represents the very worst of everything. If we're going to go out for things, then we have to stick with what we're saying. A little bit of here will be 5 cents here, 5 cents there, 10 cents there. Next thing we'll have another $100 million gone down the toilet, and we wonder where it went. We have to show some ability to show some discipline with spending other people's money. And as far as as groups that put things forward, they put things forward for 20, hoping to get some of what they put forward. And I know that in the particular area that I was involved in, just to make sure that nobody thinks I had any say in this, the T-Paver Rugby Club missed out. And they're quite happy because we went forward expecting to offer to do something and we had a feeling. Free money is always oversubscribed. There is always people wanting more for nothing. And we've given out $20 million of the free money, and we've told the public we're going to do this. I don't think we should spend a penny more. So with that, I should put the motion. Do you want to have a division for this, please? It's been put.
Councillors, you're voting on Councillor Foley's amendment. Councillor Baker.
Against.
Councillor Bartley.
Against.
Councillor Dalton.
Against.
Councillor Darby.
Against.
Councillor Ferry.
Against.
Councillor Filipina.
Aye.
Councillor Fletcher.
No.
Councillor Foley.
Aye.
Councillor Henderson.
Against.
Councillor Hills.
No, sorry.
Councillor Lee.
No.
Councillor Leone.
Sadly against.
Sorry, against. Councillor Newman. Oh, sorry. Councillor Sayers.
Against.
Deputy Mayor Simpson. Councillor Stewart.
Against.
Councillor Turner.
No, sorry.
Councillor Walker. Councillor Williamson.
No.
Mayor Brown. So that's lost.
Okay,
18
thank you for that.
I
I think we're just about ready to go back to the... It's a close call, but I think we're ready to go back to the substantial motion, original one, which has been questioned and discussed. So I'm going to put the comprehensive motion for item 11. Does somebody want...
Does anybody want to talk to it?
I think we've spoken to it.
Talking to the member. Yes. Yeah.
Eh?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want any discussion on it?
Okay, get that out of the road. I can't see what I'm doing. Righto, is there a discussion for this? We've had the questions, and some of the questions sound very much like discussion to me. Councillor Foley.
Discussion, not questions, right?
Discussion.
We're I just wanted to put on the table that, like I said, I found that although it was called a contestable process and we had agreed on that and, voted on that, based on the fact that not one single project was actually fixed or finished in the way it was divvied up, I don't think it really was applied in that way. And like I said, I get it in terms of the staff wanting to give everybody something. But I have to say, in terms of the Otara Papatoetoe Local Board and their project, that $1 million will do very little. It's really just them going out to do a bit more investigation, I guess. But that will neither fix nor finish anything for the good people out in the Otara Papatoetoe Local Board area. Appreciate, though, that the Otara streetscape will get a little bit done, and I understand Auckland Transport will put in a little bit as well. So I look forward to at least some of the Auckland streetscape being completed. Not finished or fixed, but a little bit of it being done. Kia ora.
Councillor Baker, please.
Similarly, I mean, I think this shows in hindsight the decision to pitch local boards against each other in this sort of way is probably the wrong way of doing this, and we should have found another way of doing this, because it's sort of a little bit messy and a little bit unsavoury, and I know there was a little bit of uncomfort within the local boards in regards to this. So some, and they're now probably sitting there going, could have been fixed other ways, but yeah, that's it.
Right. The wisdom of Solomon was required. Councillor Leone, please.
I just also want to, agree with Councillor Baker that I think it has been very difficult for our local boards that have been trying to obviously come to grips with all the changes around fairer funding and so on, and then to feel that they've had to really fight for something to actually be fixed and finished, which I know has been raised. So hopefully going forward, the process will be much better.
Councillor Dalton, please.
Thank you. Look, for me, that workshop that we had on fix and finish really identified we've got a significant issue with our repairs and maintenance. I was absolutely shocked at the projects that were coming forward from local boards that were around fixing existing buildings that should be on an asset maintenance register. We're fixing buildings that should be done under existing renewals money, and we're just seeing that the outcome of sweating the assets for so long. Some assets have been bowled over. There's a hall in Manurewa. It was a great hall, solid as a rock. Got bowled over because it had some black mould, apparently, and it's gone. I mean, we already said that particular local board area was weak on assets, so we've got to do something. There is something fundamentally wrong here with how we're caring, renewing, maintaining our assets. So that was what became really obvious to me. So I'd like to see something put in place so that we are keeping an eye on those renewals. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Simpson, please.
Yes, thanks. Look, I've already said my bit, but I just wanted to add one bit. I couldn't agree with Councillor Dalton more, and I think what happened, Councillor Fletcher mentioned that Auckland City Council came to the table 100% funded depreciation. The first 6 years we didn't fund it at all. We were $2 billion behind by the time we came to year 7. But the good news is that we will have fully funded depreciation by 2028. So we are getting there, but we're I was going to say back on track. We're back to, sorry, losing the will to
Can you fix your speech and finish it, please?
No, hold on. We're getting there, back to depreciation. But the really purpose, I wanted to thank our staff, Mark, to you and Violet, particularly you, Violet. I mean, this is hard. The timing is awful. It's right at in the middle of the political cycle. You've independently assessed this. You've done an amazing job to try and be as fair as possible, deliver the best option, keep out of the politics and just do it well. So I just think you need to be congratulated. Thank you. And I'll be supporting the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. And I'll also like to thank the staff. Wisdom of Solomon required there. It actually was quite interesting. It was fix and finish. We had quite a lot of them were there for improve and finish. I know that the two that I was watching from afar to see had a little bit of interest. The improvements to the Tupapa Rugby Club missed out because they were there, but fortunately the main street of Otahu will be finished because you walked up 3/4 of the main street, which was fixed and all nice, and then the other quarter of the street's dreadful instantly, so I'm pleased to see that one. So, on the basis of that, we've got to the end of this. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, carried. Thank you very much for everybody involved in this. We've got a movement. I'm quite happy to move that Councillor Walker can alter to electronic attendance. Is that right? Is that what you wish? Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye to the carry. Righto. Good luck. Don't have a crash. Going to move to an underwrite for what I believed was called Auckland Events, but seems to still be Taki and United.